So this video is about NoRedInk, which is a great interactive grammar and writing platform to have students practice their skills and to work toward mastery in those skills. So I'm going to start by logging in. You will sign up if you don't already have an account, and it'll ask you, are you a teacher or are you a student? And then you'll sign up using Google. So I always log in with Google. It's what I tell my students to do when they have to make an account. I'm going to use my PD account for this so you can see what it's going to look like if you choose to create an account. So this is the class that I made. When you go to make your first class, I believe it prompts you when you log in to create your first class. But if I want to make another one, I'll go over here where it says manage classes on the left side. And you can add a new class, and it lets you enter the class name. So I'm going to say English 2, and you can pick the grade level that your class is. So like I teach 7th grade, so I'll pick 7, and you would add a new class, and all your classes that you create would show up here on the left. This is the class code that you will give to your students, and you can copy the link if you wanted to email it out, or you can hit add students. So what I do when I do this in class is I put the code up for them, and so that way when they go to sign in as a student, it'll prompt them to put the code in. So all they do is they sign up with their email, they put the code in, and they'll join your classroom. You can add them manually. That's going to take a long time. I would recommend either posting the class code in Google Classroom, Facebook, somewhere where your students, where you communicate online with your students, or you can email the link out. So if you're done with the class, you can archive it. That's just there. Now, I'm going to go to assignments, and you will create a new assignment. So they have featured assignments that are the most popular that teachers use. This is something I just found. They have a lot of resources for distance learning that they've put out recently, and a lot more of their their premium material is free now. So you can edit the assignments, or you can assign them to your students. So this is the prompt. You can change it. You can require a minimum word count. You can offer a focus point. So maybe you're working on a particular skill. So my students write a lot of simple sentences. So maybe I will put here, like, use compound and complex sentences to share your point of view. And you would hit continue, and then you would pick the class that you want to assign it to. You would select a start date. So let's say I'm going to assign something on Monday, and then you can pick the time that it gets assigned. I'm going to pick 8 a.m., and then you can pick a due date. So maybe I want to give them all week to work on this, or maybe just like it's one writing prompt, I'll give them just a day. You can title it, you can assign points, and you can either allow or not allow late assignments. And over here, for whatever you assign, on the right-hand side here, it will tell you about how long it should take the students to get that assignment done. Now, I typically have been using NoRedInk for grammar, and I use it kind of spottily throughout the year. So I like to use a lot of practice, or I've given some diagnostics. So maybe next semester, I'll give a planning diagnostic at the beginning of the year to kind of figure out what my students need to learn. I assigned just recently for next week, I'm going to assign a unit diagnostic. But maybe you just want your students to practice a particular skill. So these are all the conventions that they have. And again, my class is 7th grade, or 6th and 7th grade. So this is going to be geared towards those that level of learner. And so you can preview, like this would be their question. So last Tuesday, the students in Olivia Munn's class learned how to bake cupcakes. The student would select the active voice verb in the question and submit their answer. And so you pick as many or as few as you want. And down here, when you pick them, it will tell you about how many topics you have. and then how long that's going to take. And so when you've picked as many, maybe you want your kids doing, I don't know, like an hour of grammar practice next week. You would pick maybe some topics that you want them to do until you hit the time limit or as many topics. If I had students in my class, I could pick which students you want to assign it to. So it allows for individualization. And again, you pick a start date, a due date, you would name it grammar, and you would allow or not allow late submissions. Okay, so here you can see, so this is upcoming because I scheduled it for Monday. This one is in progress because I think I made the start date today. Over here, you would be able to, again, preview what your students would see. So they would see this when they log in, and they would begin it. This lesson is basically, it explains what they will be doing. So it tells them the different rules for distinguishing, in this case, contractions and possessives. So ideally, they would read through this. If they're like my students, they just go right to the practice. When your students create their own accounts, it'll prompt them to select their interests. So it will use those interests in the question. So for example, Katniss Everdeen is a character in the Hunger Games. So I, may have picked the Hunger Games as one of my interests, so they use her name in the question. So what does the bold word mean? It means so it's raining outside. It is. And it'll tell them whether they got it correct or not. And it tracks their progress along this bar here. So it means you are. And I believe after 3 or 4 correct answers, it moves on. And it'll also, my kids get freaked out because it'll put their names in the questions because they use their email to log in. And so it'll tell them they've completed the first level. And if you give me a moment. So now I'm going to log in with my school email so I can show you the classes that I already have set up. So if I go to manage classes, I can see, again, these are the codes. They make no sense. I don't know. The kids think it's funny sometimes. But I can go see the assignments that I've given to each hour. So second hour, I've given diagnostics and practices. There's nothing in progress, but I have 2 upcoming assignments, and these are the due dates. So I've assigned a unit diagnostic and a practice. And the unit diagnostics, once you give it and you get results, you're able to create a unit around their responses. So again, it really does allow for personalization. This is a pretest they took, so I can click on this graph here and see the results. So I see that this class really needs a lot of help with A-positive phrases. So I have the ability to start a unit. And again, you can pick students, and it actually does tell you maybe if they are all beginning and struggling, I might give them this particular practice. These ones, they haven't taken it, so it's going to say not assigned. And then 4th hour also took it, and I can see who either has not taken it or finished it, or who is beginning. And again, you can always go back and you can edit and add to what you want them to practice. And then you can assign it. And again, it tells you can pick how many questions you want them to answer. It'll show you how long it's going to take. Up here is student data. So it will break it down by assignment types. You can select all of them or whichever ones you want to see. This tells me that that was his score on the diagnostic, and then they haven't done these, so there is no score to look at. And then this has a breakdown of all the pathways that they have. So if you were to use this throughout the year, you would be able to see how well your students are progressing in the various areas. And you can break that down. So I think that is all. Oh, so you can view it as a student so that you can see what they're going to look at. Again, they'll see, oops, I have a late assignment that I didn't finish, and it'll tell me how late it is. If you want to make it more of an extension activity, you can just say, click on master topics and work on a topic of your choice, or you can just say, instead of assigning it, you can say, work on adjectives. And there's 4 topics. So you would begin, again, with the lesson, and it tells you what they'll be going over, and they can always come back to this. And then the practice. So it's super easy for the kids to navigate. And I, as a teacher, can skip the tutorial, but that's what they would go through. And then it will typically walk the students through how to use the different tools. So sometimes they might have to click on certain answers. They might have to highlight something. They might have to click and drag. But it will typically, if they have to do something like that, it'll walk them through how to do that. And you can return to the dashboard, and it tracks their progress here. I really do love this because it is super interactive. The kids, it tracks their mastery. They're not doing the same practice, 30 questions on identifying the antecedents or something like that. It will bump them up through the different levels of mastery with the different skills that you want to do. And so again, you can see the activity of their assignments. You can create view assignments, view student data. I have my classes broken down into their class period. You could do it by grade level. I don't believe the students are able to see the other, like their classmates, but you are. You can, over here on the left-hand side, you can add a co-teacher. I recommend if you are maybe an English teacher and you want to have your students do some interactive grammar practice, I recommend checking it out. They also have, like I said earlier, they have writing assignments that you can pick from. You can go through the different standards, ACT, SAT, the MAP test. Like you can pick by their scores what they need to work on. So this is something that will work as much as you want it to. Like you can pick and choose what you want to assign. It's super easy to individualize. So I recommend giving it a try. And again, you can let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to hearing how it goes for you.